So today, we have been working this week on making inferences. And today we're going to practice that. And I'm going to model for you what it looks like when I read and I make an inference. Inferencing is a hard skill. So let's look again at our chart here. What is an inference? Well, when I think about an inference, I think about it being an educated guess that I have to make as a reader, and I have to base it on a couple of things. I have to base it on evidence from the text, and I have to put it with what I know, and then I've got to decide something. Now, why is it important to be able to infer? Well, the author does not always come right out and say what he or she means. Sometimes you have to read between the lines. You have to think, what did I just read here? What do I know about this? What's the author trying to tell me that he didn't say in words in the text? So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to read one of my favorite stories from one of my favorite authors, and it's a story you may have heard before. It's called Two Bad Ants by Kristen Alsberg. And as I'm reading Two Bad Ants today, I'm going to stop at points and I'm going to model for you what's going on in my head when I try to make an inference. Okay. The news traveled swiftly through the tunnels of the ant world. A scout had returned with a remarkable discovery, a beautiful sparkling crystal. When the scout presented the crystal to the ant queen, she took a small bite, then quickly ate the entire thing. She deemed it the most delicious food she had ever tasted. Nothing could make her happier than to have more, much more. The ants understood. They were eager to gather more crystals because the queen was the mother of them all. Her happiness made the whole ant nest a happy place. So I'm going to stop here a second because I'm thinking there's something the author's not telling me right now. And I've got to kind of figure it out. So I read in the text that the scout ant had come back with a crystal, and I read that the queen ant gobbled it up. Okay? And that she wanted more, a lot more. So I'm going to have Mr. Pelzer put down that evidence from the text, because that's exactly what I read. The scout gave the queen some crystals, and she gobbled it up, and she wanted more. Now in my mind, I'm thinking about ants. So I'm going to think about my schema, my prior knowledge. I'm thinking about ants in my house, and I know that ants like to go where there's food, okay? They like to be, I know I have had the experience in my house before that ants will congregate around sugar. And I also know that sometimes people will call sugar crystals. So I am going to infer that this crystal is sugar. The author didn't say it was sugar, but I can infer that based on the evidence from the text, what I know about ants, and I just read between the lines, and I figured out that I think these ants are going after sugar crystals for the queen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, you don't need to be writing anything yet, okay? So don't worry about writing anything. I'll get to the point where you're going to write in a second. All right, you ready? It was late in the day when they departed. Long shadows stretched over the entrance to the ant kingdom. One by one, the insects climbed out, following the scout, who had made it clear. There were many crystals where the first had been found, but the journey was long and dangerous. They marched into the woods that surrounded their underground home. Dusk turned to twilight, twilight tonight. The path they followed twisted and turned, every bend leading them deeper into the dark forest. So I'm going to stop again because I'm going to infer something here. I read in the text that the ants went into the deep, dark forest going after these crystals, right? And I know ants are tiny. They're little. So I'm going to infer that this deep, dark forest is probably just a backyard. Is that an educated guess based on what I read and what I know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did the author say that the ants were in a backyard?
No.
But what did I do? I inferred it. What did I do when I made that inference? Turn and talk to your neighbor. What did I have to do? Okay, what did I have to do when I made that inference? Liza, what did I have to do?
You had to use your text evidence and then use your prior knowledge to find what the author was saying.
What was the author trying to tell me? What did the author want me to understand? He wanted me to understand that the forest is
A backyard.
yeah. He didn't say it was the backyard. He said that it was the deep, dark woods. But to me, it makes sense that to an ant, a backyard would seem like a forest. Is it a forest to us?
No.
No. But I'm going to infer that the ants are probably in a yard, based on what I know and what I read. More than once, the line of ants stopped and anxiously listened for the sounds of hungry spiders. But all they heard was the call of crickets echoing through the woods like distant thunder. Dew formed on the leaves above. Without warning, huge cold drops fell on the marching ants. A firefly passed overhead that, for an instant, lit up the woods with a blinding flash of blue-green light. At the edge of the forest stood a mountain. The ants looked up and could not see its peak. It seemed to reach right to the heavens, but they did not stop. Up the side they climbed, higher and higher. The wind whistled through the cracks of the mountain's face. The ants could feel its force bending their delicate antennae. Their legs grew weak as they struggled upward. At last, they reached a ledge and crawled through a narrow tunnel. Okay, stop. I want you to work with your reading partner and see, can you make an inference? What's some evidence from the text? What do you know about ants? What do you infer? So go ahead, work with your partner, and let's get an inference now.
Okay,
Get it written down. Okay, Jameson, keep working. Do you, oh, is that what you're writing from the text? Okay, so the text said they're climbing up, good. What are you writing for your text evidence?
What the ants they're climbing up.
Okay, so the text said that the ants are climbing up a mountain, all right? What did you guys
Ants
write?
are small.
Climbing up a mountain. Okay, what do you know?
So the text says ants are small.
Okay, okay. What do you guys write down? What did you write down from the text? Okay, what's your background knowledge? What do you know? evidence that you want to share? Okay, what's your text evidence? What was something in the text that you wrote down with your partner, CJ?
The ants are climbing up a mountain.
Okay, so in the text it said the ants were climbing a mountain. How many of you had something for your text evidence? I saw a lot of you. The ants were climbing a mountain. How many of you had something about the mountain? Did anybody have something different? Okay, so go to your schema, your prior knowledge. Because we're going to put what we read with what we know to make a decision about what the author is trying to tell us. What do you know? What do you know about ants? What do you know about Mitch?
They're small and walking 8 yards it's a job.
Ants are small and walking a long distance is a job. Okay? Yeah, I would agree. Ants are tiny. Okay? Anybody talk with your partner about what you can infer here? What do you think the author wants us to understand? Discuss that with your neighbor really quick and then tell me what you think.
I think that they are climbing on the chimney.
I think they're climbing a big house and that they're going through.
Chimneys
They're going to be going
Class, class.
Yes.
What do you think this could mean? What do you think this could mean? They're climbing up a mountain. We know ants are small. What do you think this could mean, Anna?
That they're actually climbing up a house or a chimney.
Okay. This could mean the ants are climbing up the side of a house or up the side of a chimney. Is that an educated guess?
Yeah.
Is it a guess that makes sense?
Yeah.
Did the author tell us the ants were climbing up the side of a house?
No.
Then how did we figure that out? How in the world did we come up with this and it makes sense? How did we do that?
We use our text evidence.
We used our text evidence. What did we put it with? Haley? We put it with our background knowledge and we decided something. We decided that this could mean the ants are climbing up the side of a house. You might have put a chimney. Aiden?
For the text evidence, it also says that they entered a tunnel.
It does say they entered a tunnel. What are you thinking about there?
It's either some sort of pipe going in the house or the chimney.
Okay.
I think it's like the drain, the water drain.
Are any of those educated guesses that could make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ashlyn,
I think it's a window.
you think it might be a window? Would a window maybe look like a tunnel to an ant?
Yeah.
Yes,
Huh.
because it's big.
Hey, here's the thing about when we make an inference, boys and girls. As long as it's educated and it makes sense with our text evidence and with what we know, any of those seem possible, don't they? Okay, let's read a little bit more. Okay, I read that page. When the ants came out of the tunnel, they found themselves in a strange world. Smells they had known all their lives. Smells of dirt and grass and rotting plants had vanished. There was no more wind, and, most puzzling of all, it seemed that the sky was gone. They crossed smooth, shiny surfaces, then followed the scout up a glassy, curved wall. They had reached their goal. From the top of the wall, they looked below to a sea of crystals. One by one, the ants climbed down into the sparkling treasure. So I want you to think back to the beginning of the story. Where were the ants setting off for? What were they setting off to do? Sutton?
They were trying to get sugar.
we think they were trying to go get sugar for the queen, right? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to infer, where are these ants and how can you tell? Work with your partner again one more time. What was evidence from the text? What do you know?
Well, the text evidence is the sky was gone and the smell of ants.
Come on, what are you guys thinking about? Okay, but you don't have your text evidence or your, and specifically in the house, where are they? Okay, but what else? Did you have anything else? There was something on that page. It said they followed the steps of the grassy wall. From the top of the wall, they went below to a sea of crystals. They climbed down to the sparkling treasure. Where are they?
And you won't see the AI in the house. Right in a house, you can't see the sky. No, probably sugar.
Take out the egg.
We can infer.
What was your evidence from the text, TJ?
So I can infer that they
Are used to being in different places. Houses should be on.
they were walking on shiny things.
Okay, you can go more specific than that. On that second page, what did they talk about? That they climbed up a curved glass wall, they looked below into the crystals, and so where specifically in the house? The kitchen, and where in the kitchen? Where do you keep sugar?
Okay, I got it.
Or in I keep mine in. Okay, so put your inference here that you're going to infer that they are in a house in the, okay, and near where? What are you guys inferring over here? In the house where? In the kitchen. How do you know that? Okay, and how do you know they're in the kitchen? What from the text lets you know that they were in the kitchen? Well, there was something specific though. It said they climbed up a curved glass wall and looked down into the sea of crystals. So what would they be looking at? Where do you keep sugar?
Where do you keep sugar in kitchen?
In the kitchen, yeah. Okay, class.
Yes.
Help me out here. Who's got some ideas? Let's start with our inference first. What did you infer from the text? What did the author not tell us, but you were able to figure it out, Tori?
Maybe the ants are in the sugar in the kitchen.
Okay. How many of you had something similar to that? That the ants had made it into the house, in the kitchen, and maybe even that they were in the sugar bowl. Okay, now let's work backwards. What from the text and what from your background knowledge helped you figure that out? Because the author did not say the ants were in the kitchen. How did you figure it out? Give me a second. Maybe the ants are, what did you say, Tori?
In the sugar in the kitchen.
In the sugar in the kitchen. Give me some text evidence that would support that. Noelle?
They were walking on
Okay. What else? What else would tell you that they've moved to inside the house? Liza?
that the sky is
the sky was gone. Okay. Mitch?
They're walking on shiny stuff.
They walked on shiny surfaces. Okay. Noah?
There wasn't any wind.
No wind. Okay, now what do you know? What was some of your background knowledge? Mitch?
Like for the shiny stuff, the surface, I think that might be like granite on the countertop.
Okay, countertops, and what else in your kitchen might be shiny? Kaylee?
Counter's clean.
Countertops, and I'm thinking about my sink.
Oh yeah.
Is my faucet shiny on my sink?
Yeah.
Okay, so countertops and faucets are shiny. Okay, what about the no wind and the sky being gone? What do I know there, Malia?
Well, the sky's suddenly gone, unless you have like a window, like on the roof of your house, usually it's closed.
Yeah, can't see the sky inside, can you? And there's usually no wind inside either. So, the sky being gone, walking on shiny surfaces, no wind. What about, how did Tori know that they were in the sugar? What were the clues from the text that told her they were in the sugar, Jameson?
Amelie Alexander to the office, please. Your ride is here.
Climbed up a glass wall. How many of your parents keep sugar in a glass jar, or maybe mine is in a plastic one, but have you seen sugar kept in some sort of container like that?
Yeah.
So our background knowledge is, I know that sugar is kept in a glass container sometimes. Would that help us infer that the ants are inside the house, in the kitchen, in the sugar?
Yes.
Yeah. What did we just do? We made an
Inference.
How do I know it's an inference? Because the author didn't
Give it out.
tell me. The author did not tell me the ants had made it to the house and in the kitchen. I had to use what I read and put it with what I know. Okay, we're going to do one more page, and you're going to make an inference all on your own this time. And I'm going to collect these and take a look at them to see how we're doing with inferences. Okay, you ready? I'm going to read a couple pages, so just look at me, no writing yet. Quickly, they each chose a crystal, then turned to start the journey home. There was something about this unnatural place that made the ants nervous. In fact, they left in such a hurry that none of them noticed the two small ants who stayed behind. Why go back? One asked the other. This place may not feel like home, but look at all these crystals. You're right, said the other. We can stay here and eat this tasty treasure every day forever. So the two ants ate crystal after crystal until they were too full to move and fell asleep. Daylight came. The sleeping ants were unaware of changes taking place in their newfound home. A giant silver scoop hovered above them, then plunged deep into the crystals. It shoveled up both ants and crystals and carried them high into the air. The ants were wide awake when the scoop turned, dropping them from a frightening height. They tumbled through space in a shower of crystals and fell into a boiling brown lake. On your own, you're going to make an inference. What can you infer from what I just read? Think about the text, think about what you know, and put it together to make an inference. When you're done, I want you to bring your paper to me. Stop right now and make sure your name is at the top. Put your name at the top, and then you're going to infer on this page what is happening to the ants right now. What inference can you make?